Alright then. We're getting to the end of these tier lists for Command & Conquer. And today I basically have the original Command & Conquer FMVs to go through. Before I jump into these though, I want to note that I actually went into the tier list I basically made for Red Alert. And I broke it down basically into Retaliation and the original ones. Just to make it a little bit easier to manage these, I guess. I also went back into this list here and I actually changed around some things. Note that basically I put Allies 5 and Allies 6 basically around different places here. I think I originally had them up here in excellent, but I felt I should be booting a couple of these basically down to laudable, so that's basically where these went. And of course Allies 8 is still terrible, so it's there. Nothing really changed with the retaliation, so whatever. Let's get into the Command & Conquer FMVs now. Alright, so the first one basically appears when you basically hit the start new game. So I'll be right back. Alright, so I'll note that the intro for Command & Conquer is actually probably one of my favorite intros to a game ever. Just because it completely establishes the lore of what Command & Conquer is basically all about. The idea is basically you're cycling through various channels on a TV. And some are animated, some of them are fitness channels, some actually have a daytime drama. You have a couple kids on a street with stuff they're drinking. A promotional advertisement. And they also have this interspersed activity Nod and GDI basically combating each other. A bit about Tiberium and stuff like that. It's very much grounded basically in what our real world would be if we have Tiberium basically in it, so to speak, and these Nod terrorist forces and stuff like that. Now, I'll note by the way that the thing about the FMV basically also shows here that sometimes it'll be mixed with CGI as well. So you have say for example the aircraft carrier that basically has the GI troops getting ready to go for their attack on Nod forces, and you basically have the guy standing there. You look at his watch. You see the other guys march basically along around next to him, and everything basically in that scene except for those moving humanoids are basically animated features. So you basically get a lot of that basically in this game. And I feel it's a fantastic way basically getting you into the game. So it's you're being you're sort of getting an info dump perhaps you could say, but it's basically a very quick and informative info dump that really gives you the setting of what the world's basically like at the moment. All right, let's go on to the Nod mission FMVs. I'm actually tempted to actually just go through these with you guys, so here's Seth. Boom. I really like the fact that that briefing is very short because you just had a long intro. Basically telling you about the game. So you want to basically keep the initial intro basically short to basically get you into the next bit. And at the same time, Seth is it's very quick introduction to him. He's basically Seth. He's the right hand guy of Kane. He has a task for you. You're gonna go do it. Go get to it. So excellent. It's not wasting my time. It's basically give me the information real quick. Excellent. Alright, the next one's going to be Nod 2. So basically, you've accomplished your task. Alright, so there's the introduction to the second mission. Note that these introductions, like, they're getting progressively a little bit longer now, but basically that second one basically gives you like a little background of like, what's going on. Essentially, something I actually think you'd be like back so soon, so it's like, okay, you're competent. Let's give you something a little bit more important to do. He basically like tasks you to like go invade Egypt, so he gets you a few expendable troops, and note that he says expendable troops in there, so we have that idea of expendability basically being like sort of like thrown around here a little bit. He's like, you get to harvest Tiberium, so that should cover your expenses, so you're basically establishing a base, so great. And then he gets you a little like impactful like sentence at the end. If you're detected, you fail. If you fail, you die. So it basically drives home the point. This is not a very friendly organization, so don't fail. Again, another excellent like little film to sort of like get you into the game. All right, so the next one's going to be not free. So here we go. At this point, I'll probably just come off. So yeah. All right then. So I'll note that basically for Friends of the Brotherhood, so that's basically like, okay, I'm quite pleased with like how you're doing. I'm sure Kane will be very pleased when I actually tell him about you, by the way. And he basically tells him like a word from me goes a long way basically in the Brotherhood. So it's like his way of like saying like okay, you've got my attention, which means you're gonna get Kane's attention. Good job. He didn't ask you to go and like rescue some friends in the Brotherhood. And he actually gives you a very important, like, tidbit here. Basically, you have to overwhelm the base, but not destroy it, because you're trying to capture stuff of engineers here. So, that's the idea. Capture stuff of engineers, and then, like, you win, so to speak. I think it's laudable, that one, I'll note. Now, I'm not going to say this one's laudable, because you don't actually have to like, capture like anything besides the prison, but it's still like accurate enough as like a FMV, so it's fine. All right, so not 4B. Now I'll note that basically convoy interception. The introduction is basically one of these like ones that doesn't have anything on it, so nothing really to say there. But if you basically go to like the end here for false flag operation. Or is it like not? It is right here. So introduction. Okay, I'm just gonna skip this. You'll basically see like what the FMV basically is. So this is basically like the intro, like cinematic for his mission here. Now, no, probably I consider this to be an FMV one because when we basically look at the guy who's basically interrogating like the other soldier, that basically looks like it's like acted as like by a person as opposed to like drawn out. Because like, it looks too nice for like 1992, right? And I just realized I showed you guys a gunshot on YouTube. Whoop. Oh well. Well, anyhow, false flag operation. I'll note that you're basically gonna see like some CGI, like sort of like interspersed with like there's going to be like some like live action basically in some of these like CGI ones in Command & Conquer. Quite a bit more in like Red Alert. Anyways, I think that makes the cinematic like pretty good. So I generally don't like to see too much mix of like FMV and like CGI and like people basically inside it, but whatever, it's fine. All right, so grounded space. The next one, like the introduction. So let's go to it. And I'll be right back. All right, there's actually like a breakdown of like stuff here. Basically, just like the information briefing. So not a whole lot basically of like CGI here, but there's enough of it to like not a lot of like live action basically. So I'm thinking. I'll just like end it here and come right back. Alright, after basically like, you get free information briefing, you basically get like this. So yay, we're being mentioned. Alright, so I'll note that the information like dump, like, where basically, stuff like, Kane wants you to view this, so to speak. So it's a nice little, idea, basically, sort of like, bring in like the quotes, basically, like, in order to like, conquer the future must possess the past and stuff like that. It's like it's sort of like builds into like the later quotes, but I always felt like it's sort of mediocre, sort of getting you in. So whatever. Now I know for like not 5, that's going to be laudable. Essentially for like Seth's part right there, he's basically like, I mentioned your like efforts. Kane's somewhat impressed. He's going to be watching you this time around, so be mindful of like your antics, so to speak, because if you fail, I'm in trouble. So don't do that. All right, so after we basically get through grounded, we get into Nod 6, where Seth starts to get a little bit jealous, I guess, of our exploits, so to speak. Alright, so he was starting to trust us, but now he's not so sure. Because you see, power in the Brotherhood goes a long way, and it changes power. And he's very much aware of this. Alright, so this basically sort of like sort of lays the grounds for what's basically to come. Essentially, like, Kane's looking at you as being like, very important. And he's actually tasking you specifically now to actually do stuff. In many ways, I consider this to be like, a very excellent sort of like, portrayal of what's basically to come. So yeah, let's just throw Nod 6 basically up there. And then we're on to Nod 7, A and B. I'll note basically it's like, two separate like, briefings here because like, Orca Heist is different from the other two. Now I'm going to press the introduction here for a little bit just so you can like, listen to like Seth a little bit here. Pay attention to like his tone, by the way, just to throw it out there. Alright, so I asked you to pay attention to that tone because we're just going to jump in here right away. Alright, so Orca Heist. Alright, so I'll note that 7A and B and 7C are basically very like, different in sort of like how like, Seth very promotes his tone. 7A and 7B, you basically see like, Seth's like, well, there's no stopping you, is there? And like 7C, he's like, well, there's no stopping you, is there? And I'll note that that tone basically sort of like, portrays a little bit about like, what Seth's basically like, sort of thinking of you basically. I'll note for 7A and B as well, he sort of lies to you as well about what's basically to come. And normally I would say like, a break between the FMV and like, the gameplay is like a bad thing, but in this case it actually makes sense because he doesn't actually want you to actually succeed here. He wants you to fail. So he's like, okay, well, intelligence says there's nothing there, but he knows there's like a base right there to deal with, but whatever. So yeah, I'll say that like, this one's basically excellent. Now I won't say that for 7C, I'll say it's laudable. The thing about like, the Orca Heist like, intro is that basically like, he's like, well, someone of your brilliance should have no problem basically sneaking into a base, grabbing an Orca helicopter and blowing up a city basically like, across the river. So good luck. It should be fine. That one, he knows that's gonna be a difficult task to basically pull off. He's just sort of like, downplaying a little bit, but whatever. It could have been better, I think. Alright, so Not 8. I am Kane. That's the quote I basically chose for this one. And you know why. Alright, so, the introduction of Kane. And it does it in a fairly bombastic way, of course, by shooting Seth. So, Nod 8 is basically where, like, Seth's decide that, like, he's gonna send you off to the United States, but in the background, Kane basically, gets this, like, his, like, gun, ready to go. Seth basically, like, proceeds to, like, give you your mission before, bam! He gets shot in the head by Kane. Kane, like, dumps his body over and he's like, okay, well, guess I'm the one giving you orders now. I am Kane. And yes, power shifts quickly, by the way. Congratulations on your promotion. Alright, so. Now we have another split mission here for, No Mercy and, like, Dr. Wong, I guess. Oh, wait, that's, like, number 10. So here's No Mercy, basically. Alright, so, the introduction of the flame tank. That's what No Mercy is basically all about. Now, I do actually sort of like that, like, sort of cinematic, because it's like, well, we found this web, we found, like, our defenses are weakening. I need you to go and reinforce it. By the way, I developed this new weapon you might find useful. Go have fun with it. For most parts, like, an okay, like, introduction for, like, Kane as, like, a quest giver, or, like, quest giver, but, a mission giver, so, it's laudable. Alright, Dr. Wong, just like the split mission for number 10 here. So, we have one for a good doctor, who basically produces the ion cannon, and one for the MAV tank that comes after. Oh, right. I'm not basically just like another one of our brief. Blah. This is another one of our like sort of mission briefings, basically telling us about like Tiberium and stuff like that. So basically, like there's some live action basically in it with like Mobius, and of course Kane talking in the background. All right, so we're getting to the end of like this first cinematic right here. Here's like the actual mission briefing basically for Dr. Wong. Basically, you see like a bit of a briefing, basically like your past briefing, and it goes into the actual mission for this one. Alright, so. I'll note that I sort of like these sort of interludes of like, Kane in like the mission briefing. They basically get like mission like, the GDI mission 10. And it basically sort of like sets a dictum where basically both the Nod African campaign and the GDI like European campaign are very much connected. Essentially like, they're fighting hard basically in both these continents, but it's basically like here in Africa they're doing really well. Anyhow, I'll note that basically like, for Nod 10 here, I guess like the like sort of introduction like with briefing is like good because it's sort of like denotes like how like Kane is basically connected to like Tiberium, what basically thinks of Mobius, gives you some like important like insights and stuff like that. It's laudable. Then we get to like the good doctor basically. Now the good doctor is just like in like his like base basically like somewhere. I find that this one's sort of mediocre because it's not really giving us like all the like information like what to basically expect. Essentially, it's a commando mission where you have to like get your guys basically to look around for this base, and then you have to basically finish off like the good doctor. But how you basically do that is like you have to basically do like blow up the structure, and that requires like blowing stuff across the river and stuff like that. Anyhow, I always found like that one to be a little bit mediocre, so we'll just throw it right there. And now we got the belly of the beast. Let's skip this. Kane will give his interlude about like Tiberium and stuff again, and he'll talk about the beast. Now, I'm basically like, keep this recording now. Oh, I guess I'm not. Alright, I guess there's a completion basically for this I want to show you guys, so let's go into that right now. Now, this is basically another like CGI like cinematic here, but I feel like the missile trooper that basically fires the rocket at his tank is actually like, someone acting it out, so let's wait for it, and here he is right here, right? So that looks to be like an actor, so it's very like brief, but yeah, I guess it's fine. It does the job of basically showing off the rocket slowly like blowing up the tank. I guess that was cheaper than having like a fully animated like rocket soldier, so why not? Oh, this one's the one. Alright, so here's like the beast, by the way, where I have to basically blow him in his nest. I always found it to be like an excellent sort of like video because as long as you like he blows up and you meet expectations, you're good, basically. So excellent. Alright, Ezekiel's wheel. Not 11. Alright, the stealth tank mission. I don't really think much of the stealth tank mission, but the intro's basically fine. He's like, get it back and make sure they're punished. So, excellent. Alright, not 12. Steal the codes. Alright, so I'm not that the CGI like cinematic is really like steals the show for this one, but whatever. Alright, so Mission 12, again, it's like a mission I don't really care much about for this like campaign. But the intro is basically like okay, and the CGI is just awesome for it. Essentially like not 12. The idea is like you want to basically steal those codes, which basically builds on like your mission for like mission 10. So they complete the project regardless of like whether it's being done or not. But well, it does like meet a nice little tidbit of like information what can basically do with it there in like the final one. It's funny. They actually like go to, in Tip Sun actually have like not stealing the codes again. So it really shows that their ion cannon like it's not secure at all. But whatever. So not 12. This is probably another one of those laudable ones because he's basically like he's not really like driving home the point, just like how like important this mission is basically going to be. But whatever, it's fine. All right, now we get to the 13, the final mission for the Not campaign. Note we have it broken down into like Not 13, Part 1 finale and Part 2 finale. So let's get into the introduction here first. Alright, well, that's a very quick briefing, but considering like how long the like final briefing is going to be like in the finale, it's probably fine. So yes, the Temple of his Cradle, har har har. But anyhow, Not 13 is basically quick and like to the point. It's like doing its job. It's being like prophetic. It doesn't really need to do much to be a fantastic, so it's fantastic. Alright, so now we get into completions. Now, Notebook is basically like two videos here, and like how we basically have this going is like I have like the first part being like up to basically where you get to choose what to do. So you basically see like the picture over here. Not finale part 1. The choice, my friend, is yours. So that basically like the last thing like Kane basically says to you after like his net runners basically like achieve gain the thing, and then not finale part 2. A mind-numbing attack or accident is basically the way I basically said for part 2. Alright, let's see here. So, completion. All right, well, that's basically all the, well, I guess there's like these guys as well, but that's basically for Kane. Quite a bit of acting for this one, for sure, because, this one's like a very important, like, finale. All right, I'll note the Eiffel Tower just got blown up there, and now we're getting to like the part 2 here. And basically, just like where I consider like the part 2, basically this finale, the reporter. And there's like the end of like that briefing by the news anchor. I just realized you could escape out of that, so why not? All right, so that basically like pertains basically to like the nod portion of like cinematics here. Note that there's not a whole lot of like full motion video basically sort of acting going on with like the CGI bits, but there is still like a lot of the like informative like mission briefings and stuff like that. All right, so I'll note that basically for like the ending theme for like the nod. I don't think much of the song, but the like acting like the news anchor before then is just fine, and it's very like 90s basically the sort of like cinematic ending. And I'll note by the way, you have to remember this is basically back in like 1992, right, when like Command and Conquer was put out. Basically back in the 90s, they were like a whole like different view of basically what the the internet was basically like. People like surfing the internet, so to speak. So they basically have like sort of like very different portrayal that's like very different and distinct. I don't think that's aged as well at this point, but it's fine. It's still pretty like good for what it basically is, so it's excellent. The finale is basically pretty good to sort of like drive home the point of like stuff as well. So it's excellent. Let's just throw right there. All right, just give me a part 2, but I'll basically break that basically into its own parts. So for now, I'm just gonna stop recording here and I'll like attach to the next part basically on top. So be right back. All right, then let's continue. All right, so the GDI campaign has a lot more like acting basically in its like CGI little things, and that includes being the first like mission here with like the construction yard like CGI. Well, all right, let's just jump into it. All right, well, a very simple get in and get like started so to speak mission. Compared to like the nod mission number 1, I always felt this is like a little bit less like GDI 1. It is quick, but I mean at the same time it feels like it could have been shorter. It could have been more to the point. All right, so the completion. So basically, this is like the CGI where like they're building the construction yard like into like a mobile construct like from an MCV to the construction yard like unpacking here. I'll be right back. All right, this is getting toward the end. So basically, you can see like just like a little bit of like acting right there, obviously. I'll note that for like the acting in that one, it feels unnecessary. So they probably could have gone around like not having that basically there. So deficient. Alright, knock out that refinery. Again, a short cinematic, but... well, better than, like, the other one. I think it's a lobby like entry, but it probably again it could have been shortened. Maybe have like card be a little bit more like erratic and like to the point. Like there's a refinery out here. We're being pounded. Get support out here. All right, so mission free. I'll start cutting these base at this point. All right. I think like number 3 is basically the first excellent one for like the GDI campaign. Essentially, like he's like, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't give you any information like now. Here's your task. You need to blow up these SAM sites so I can give you air support, then blow up the base. That's basically what it's like getting to. And then he, like he basically like drops off with like a little bit of a city time at the end, which is like important for like the overall like backing of like, this campaign. All right, 4AW and 4. Well, basically there's like 2 like cinematics to go through here. Stolen property. Okay, this isn't going to be like any human action here. But here he is. Now, I'll note that this like CGI animation. I suspect like this like part of like the infantry is basically all like live acting. So that looks like it's live acting right there. And right here. I suppose that like that is basically necessary for that one, so I'll say it's lobbable. It's okay. And what I'm basically like doing is Morales, so I really don't think much of like Morales basically is like a pilot basically like giving a briefing. She serves as more like a background character than anything else, so yeah, it's okay, but it's lobbable. Access granted, also lobbable. It does its job, that's its purpose. Alright, 4BW, this is the one about Bialystock. Alright, so Bialystock. Bialystock is of course like the main like mission of like note there for that one. Again, I don't think much of morale basically giving objectives. I mean, it makes sense that like you need someone to basically get the objective. Like Shepard's not there, but Kara would probably like, be like the better like person to go to. Now, no problem when you basically beat Bialystock, stolen property, or like whatever here, and get the completion. You get Greg Burdett. Alright, so I really like the like bit with Greg Burdett there because it basically really shows off like what Nod's basically like with their like propaganda. And you have to remember that Greg Burdett was also basically the like reporter that was basically like reporting the aircraft carrier back in like the intro. So He's working with Nod, apparently. Alright, so now we're gonna go with GDI 5, Restoring Power, and these are basically all the same intro, so it's fine. So alright, so it's a very short live acting for like Restore Power before it basically breaks into basically one of those like silent like no human interaction type of like briefings. This is an important one, basically to sort of like establish like what's happening in the background with like Shepard. So he's basically doing civvy time, like trying to like do damage control now. So he's excellent. That's fine. All right, so now we get into GDI 6 with Havoc, and Havoc's basically the one where we have like Carter here breaking up. It's worth noting that someone has to reuse some of these like cities. So here's this one being reused again. Now, just for fun, there's basically like this guy performing like 6A again. Let's go with this one. Why not? All right, so I know basically the idea of like Carter here is he basically like does a full like intro basically like naturally, and then they like sort of like do like stack basically after. That's an excellent like intro or fantastic intro writer. Basically like drive home like stuff can happen on the battlefield, and have like misinformation just from like incomplete information. All right, not GI 7 is basically the one where like you screwed up and now basically go back there. It's worth knowing that basically when I was basically playing like the campaign for just back in the day on the DOS version, I actually skipped through like going through mission 7 because I basically blew up something like I blew up the airstrip basically like usually on that one because that's what I knew I had to blow up. So it's worth knowing that basically like sometimes you might actually miss that CMAC for like destroy the airstrip. Not that it's anything bad. It's just like it's a lobbable one. No, it's mediocre. This is like one of like the less like favorite ones I think for a GI campaign. So we'll throw it right there. All right, let's go to UN sanctions next. Now, not probably we basically have like this like CGI, but it'll actually break into the cane eventually. So here's like our first bit of like interaction with like human people. All right, so after you get cane there, it breaks into like one of these like sound briefings to begin. All right, so I really like the UN sanctions basically like intro there because it's so how menacing Kane basically is. He's like he's found like you out, knows like where you live and stuff like that. He's basically sending you threats basically like through like your computer. This is like one of like the better like sort of intros to sort of like drive home like just how much of a menace basically Nod basically is. All right, GDI 9, Dr. No, it's clearing a path over here. So this is like the death of Carter, so to speak. Notice how like sick he looks and stuff like that. So this is like a lot more visual than anything else. Alright, so the death of Carter. I'll note that basically GDI 9 basically like really establishes what Tiberian Poison basically is like, sort of. You basically see a very sickened Carter. He's like giving you orders. Is like in a second state before like his eventual demise in the mission where the opposite light just like scorches his boats to death. It's excellent. I sort of missed it the first time around when I basically played the game, but looking back to it, it looks kind of excellent, so it's fine. Alright, now we go to orchestration. The UN wasn't against me. Not all of them, at least. Oh, right, we have the dangerous update. So this is the one without like Kane's like interludes and stuff like that. So it's just like as it's presented without Kane in the background. And then Cannon Chase music builds up as we go into the Canyon of the Orca. Alright, so I think I prefer the one with like Kane in the background, basically giving like interludes and stuff like that, but it's not bad, like missions 10, like Mission 10's like it's like natural, like Mo's talking and like the report on Tiberium and stuff like that. It gives you some background about basically like how dangerous like Tiberium basically is, so it's fine. And then we get to the debriefing itself. He's like, Morelli, I got some toys for you. Go play with them, basically. It's laudable. It's fine. Alright, Codename Delphi's next. Alright, so the stakes have risen. Basically, this is like, sort of like, homing in on like the end of like the game here. Nothing really too fancy or anything like that. It gets the job done. That's really all you need to do. Alright, so saving Dr. Mobius. So no, basically this is where like we get to see like Mobius talking a little bit again. One of these like interludes here. Alright, so we get two for here. Basically, we have like Mobius talking, and then we have like a jump into like the briefing basically for the mission. Now, I always felt that like it's kind of mediocre, like how Mobius basically talked. Why is a scientist, for example, saying "May God have mercy on our souls"? That doesn't seem to be like in touch with like what scientists would do, even like in the 90s. Though I will say that the briefing that basically comes after is pretty excellent because it basically is like not throwing everything about the kitchen sink, and it's like he may be crazy, but he holds the riddle to this key, or the key to his riddle. So yeah, excellent like briefing, not so excellent like information briefing, so to speak. All right, mission 13. We're almost due the end here. Now we get to like blow up his like research lab. All right, so that feels like it could have been like an end game, like sort of briefing right there, because that's what it was like really meant to be, right? So the Ion Can Strike. This is what it's all about. And it breaks into like its CGI, like little like spiel right after, where like it's It's Operation Jericho time. Alright, so. You know what, I'm not going to rate that as fantastic because that's a little bit too high for it, but it is a very good, little cinematic right there, so let's throw it in, at least, excellent. And then it's fish in the barrel time. Or wait, no, we have to get through the concept being destroyed. See, I just like live action right here, basically, obviously. I feel it would have been better if that guy was seeing the missiles coming in front of me, oh god, I gotta run away from this. That could have been a lot better, I think. So I'm gonna say that one's deficient. Alright, fish in a barrel. Introduction. Alright, so fish in a barrel time. A quick mission briefing for a quick mission, so to speak. It's laudable. I'll give it that. Alright, Temple Strike. Introduction. With a tired shepherd. Note that basically more about the acting as anything else. Alright, so that's a really cool intro, I think. Basically, to sort of give you an idea what's basically going on here. It's basically Kane's Temple and base of operations. You basically get to look inside. You see, the guy get jumped. So I will say there's one major pet peeve I have of it, and that's basically the soldier jumping the cameraman. He looks a little bit wonky. So yeah, I'll say it's excellent just for that. All right, so now that the finale basically has two different finales here, because obviously you have the rock blast and the or iron blast and rock fall. So part one is basically we've been taking serious basically damage, stuff like that. So it's part one. A little bit of CGI. And then Kane steps in to hear the last bits of his battle here. Now, I will note that one thing about the completion video here, it does actually include the part two where you have the reporter talking about what basically happened at the end. That's my only kerfuffle basically this here basically, but whatever. We get to see at least part one, or at least I get to see part one. We can get rid of this for now, or no, we can't. Cause I actually forgot about the two intros over here, didn't I? Oh well. Well, I'll load this basically back up here. So I'll note basically for the part one there, you basically have the temple being destroyed slowly. Kane is basically getting his final report. You have the Kane soldier being I gotta run, and then you get shot by the other guy with the eye patch. Fantastic way, basically, showing off the desperate moments, basically of the sort of end of it, shall we say, and how they sort of keep morale. And then you have either Kane dying to the rock fall or the iron blast, depending on which one you're basically going for. So there's that too. Now I do have some links here, so let's go look at those. Get these basically up here. So we can just go back here. So yeah, basically have Panic Soldier. And I got my finger star here, so let's put this in the background. So basically the rockfall one. The rocks fall down. He gets killed. Now, that's very quick and stuff like that. That's very quick, like, how, like, the rocks basically fall on him, but it makes sense that, it would be quick, like, it's just quick and, like, that's it. He's, like, finish off, like, very spectacularly, like, not very spectacularly, right? Just like that, he's gone. The fragility of human life. Let's just, like, silence this for a little bit. Alright, so, right after basically see, like, King get crushed by Rockfall or Iron Blast, depending on what happens here. You get her. Once again. Now, I'll note that I actually like this briefing a lot more than, like, the other one, because it really, like, makes it seem more credible that, like, this, like, a huge epic battle between, like, two different, like, definitely powerful forces. And she even says so right there. Note that says heavy casualties here were sustained by both sides. And it's, like, a little bit different from, like, the Iron Blast, which is, like, technically acceptable, like, casualty limits and stuff like that. More than 3 years of escalating violence. And then she, like, fades off as, like, the airstrike fiend comes in and, like, we start talking about other stuff. Alright, so. Alright, so. Alright, so. Rockfall. What was termed an epic battle? I mean, it's nothing special, but it's still a fantastic, like, ending. Basically, like, you get to hear, like, the epic, like, story of, like, what happens basically in the end there. It's just cool and awesome. And then there's, like, the Iron Blast one right over here as well, so. He looks around. And he. I guess I talk in the video too as well, so why not? Yes, note that KBC, he knows that he's about to die. He sees it coming. See, I note that here we're basically describing the ion cannon here. I think this is a little bit shorter in, like, the time frame as the other one. And then we get the, infamous quote here. Now, note by the way, I really don't think much of like the Iron Blast ending here. It's just like sort of like, is like, oh, this is so awesome, this super weapon. And it does make sense to be like done like this, but it feels like it's like overblowing it a little bit. Alright, so there's basically the Iron Blast one. That one I can only consider like, excellent. I mean, it's still like a fairly, good like ending. Well, no, I'm gonna say it's laudable. The thing about that ending is I really don't like how like Kane sort of accepts his death. It's not like immediate like the Rockfall one, and that sort of like over like talking about the Iron Cannon like sort of like kills it for me as well, just a little bit. All right, now we have to go through two other like things here. I'm not I think you can actually see this as like an ending one for like a failure maybe, but if you go to like elemental imperative and go to the completion, I think here you get the two soldiers squaring off against each other. So very quick like cutscene of two soldiers battling it out. I think it works quite well. And then the fun park intro. Alright, so that's very quick and all that stuff, I guess. The fun park intro doesn't really need to be anything special. It's just like a little, like, fun little, like, gimmick, I guess, to basically play through. So I think it could have been done, like, a little bit more, like, better. I mean, in Card did it better with his, like, regular Giant Ants one, so... I'll say it's deficient. Alright, so, there's basically my tier list for Command & Conquer. Both the Nod and GDI forces. Hope you guys basically enjoyed, like, me going through it. I'll probably have, like, a separate one for, like, everything all combined. I'll probably do that a little bit quicker as well. And I'll see you guys when I get to it. But for now, take care.